Thank you for tuning in for Rising Icon on Intellectual Radio and iHeartRadio station, sponsored by Sin Chicago and my chocolate soul. So today we're going to talk about relationship. Why is it so hard? Is that our culture, our religion, our generation, or what it really is? Make it really hard. And is that about me or is that about you? Who is responsible for our relationship when it's not working? So today we're going to explore a little bit about this topic with two of my great friends, Elizabeth and Tim. Why don't you two introduce yourself to us and let us know a little bit about you, what you do?
So
And also, sorry, and what you want to share with us today.
Totally. All right. Well, so my name's Elizabeth Potter, and so I'm a relationship consultant. And so when you consultant, it's not therapy, right? So therapy is very much a feelings based. It's looking at the past. It's not even a coach. So when you think of a relationship coach, that's somebody who's kind of sitting on the other side of the table from you. So it's like it's your problem. And you're going to work it out, and they're just there to guide you along the way. But as a relationship consultant, I work with couples, primarily ones that are going into high stress situations, usually either about to get married or a startup. So lots of tension in those type of situations. And so as a relationship consultant, I sit down with both of them. I use the Hogan Assessment and really work with them to create a plan that's really going to work for them. And so the name of my company is the ESP Foundation. So I'm excited it's my favorite topic. I can talk about relationships all day. So that's what I'm going to talk about.
That is so great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tim.
So my name is Tim Eshman. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, stone brick and concrete contractor. And the past couple of years, I've been really involved with people and possibility of just really what's possible in the world, for people to do things a little bit differently. So about 6 months ago, started going through a divorce process and I have discovered a lot of things about divorce that are different than the way that most people go through divorce. So through that, I've really discovered, that it doesn't have to be hard, that a lot of the things that people put on themselves, make it a much more difficult process than it needs to be. And, I'm a stand for people to understand that it doesn't have to be that way. So that's what I want to talk about today.
That's great. Since you started the topic, why don't you start share a little bit more about what was the situation like when you're going through your divorce? And I know that in the process that your mom passed away, and then there was lots of tension you were dealing with and how you handle them. And then in a way, please, Elizabeth, if you have anything to share with
absolutely.
us.
Sure. So really in my marriage, I've been married for 19 years. My wife is a wonderful person. We've raised 3 wonderful kids together, and they're 15, 13, and 9. And really over the past several years, my spouse really, really tried. She tried to make things work with me. And I really was kind of clueless about a lot of what I could do. Didn't really think that I could do anything to make anything better. And a lot of the way that I was raised, it was, I'm going to wait for something to happen. And, and that was kind of like how I live my life, just kind of waiting for things to happen and not really knowing that I had some control or something to do with, how things could play out in my life. So, as we've kind of like gone through, a lot of spaces of, talking about getting divorced. And then, a couple of years ago, we had chosen that we were going to go down that road. And then we kind of backed up and we didn't, do it then. And, and then back in September, things just happened to where, it was just time to move forward with it. And really what I've just discovered with, listening to a lot of people that are a little bit different, like we've talked about, sharing the house and us moving in and out of the house instead of, having the kids move back and forth. And that's, what we've been doing for a little while now. And it's actually been a great transition, for our kids. And, the biggest thing that happened, was really about 3 or 4 months ago. I was in discovery with a seminar that I was involved with, and it was all about happiness and creating your own happiness. And what I discovered with that was, there's physical things that you can do with breathing, with exercise, and with, just treating yourself, a little bit differently, and not having the mind just tell myself all the time that, I'm bad, or I'm not good enough, like really, positive reinforcement. But a lot of it started with physical body sensations, and realizing that I actually can transform some of how I feel, and I feel differently, and I actually transform, and I can create something, actually create a smile on my face, instead of having to, in this dark place because, I'm getting divorced, which is, supposed to be this horrible thing. And it's really not. It's what we really create it to be. So, that's kind of along the lines of what's been happening.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so thank you for sharing that, Tim. So, when you look at couples in, I don't want to say crisis, but certainly where there's the beginning signs of it's not going the direction they wanted to go in, the first common place is the feeling of not being heard. It's like, I'm communicating with you, I'm saying what I need, but I'm not being heard, right? So that's really the first sign that maybe there may be additional support needed, either from an outside place, whether it's from the seminar that you went to, or a coach or a consultant. That's really the first sign where you're like, okay, so I'm just not feeling heard. Because what happens when after a long period of time or a certain period of time and you don't feel heard? Well, you start getting resentful. Right. And so then your actions start matching up with being resentful. So like you come home and you say, honey, I'd like us to go on a trip. And if your partner is not feeling heard or now resentful, it doesn't matter if they want it or not, they're going to be no. Mm-hmm. Right? Because now there's resentment there.
Not only no, but like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, exactly. I told you. Didn't you hear me? Right? And so when you start hearing, and you can try this out even on your friends or even your other relationships, if you start listening to the people in your lives and they're like, that's not what I said, or you don't hear me, or you just don't get it. Like that's really the first sign inside of their language that they're beginning to feel not heard, and that resentment is beginning to build. And so that can end to, fights and conflicts and separations and things like that. But it sounds like in your divorce, which is really amazing, you were able to communicate with each other so that both felt heard inside of the separation process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great.
Well, that's really great. And when here, that's so true in most relationship nowadays. You can hear no matter it's from a male side or the female side. They both sharing is, I want them to understand me. Mm-hmm. But the other person is like, we keep talking, we talk about it, but he doesn't understand me or she doesn't understand me. Like, I don't know what else to say. I try, right? It just keep like, I'm trying and I'm tired of trying, and it added to more sadness. And this is so great, like what Tim shares. That's one of the reasons why I invite him. It happened like he called me last week, out of nowhere, and starts sharing this with me. I'm like, oh my God, you have to come to my show. Because personally, I'm dealing with my relationship is, I feel really incomplete. I feel like I was never being understood. So I was like, I want a man to be able to stand up for himself and be responsible. And when I talk to Tim, when I hear he share about his divorce and everything, I'm like, there's so much freedom and peace. And I don't hear any resentment. And especially the way he shared is, you can hear like, that's a man being responsible. As a woman, like I'm not in that relationship, but I'm hearing like, wow, I want that man to man up and tell me this. Like that's all I need. I'm not asking for too much. And I'm sure that so many people have the same emotion as me. And just like what you point out is the first sign of we craving for understanding.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so when you think about it, right, so it's kind of like it's a progression, right? So I'm not being heard, you don't get me, so now I'm going to be resentful. And maybe not even aware that you start sabotaging the relationship, right? And so then the third stage of it begins to show up of
what about the second stage before we jump on first?
Oh, the second stage. Yeah, the second stage is right. You start sabotaging it. I mean, that's really it, where you begin to do things that you may not even be aware of, where you're beginning to sabotage the relationship. Where, like, say, for example, if I'm mad at my husband about something and I've not told him, or I feel like I can't tell him, so I'm not saying anything, right? So we'll wake up in the morning. Typically, our mornings are wonderful. We've got music on, we dance in the morning, but not if I'm not feeling heard, right? Then when he turns on the music, I'm like, okay, so it's a little loud. Can you turn that off? So it gets turned off. There's no dancing in the living room, right? There's no play in the morning.
There's no joy.
There's no bliss going on in the mornings in the Potter house, right? And it's because it's the experience of, now I'm sabotaging. I'm not going to have what I really want because you don't hear me.
Yeah.
Right. You repeat that pattern enough times, and then you begin to have what my husband and I call our bricks. And so often, right, so you people say they're in a relationship and they wake up and they're like, I just don't love you anymore. I don't know what happened. It's not an all of a sudden thing.
No, it is not.
No.
No.
Right? It is a daily, weekly sabotaging of the relationship, a stepping over, right? Literally, like, you did something, Tim and I, you were in our relationship, you did something that upset me. I'm not going to say anything about it. And now all of a sudden we call it a brick. There's a brick between you and I. Now you add that relationship over time, and now there is a separation. You hear couples talk about it. We feel distant. Maybe we need to go on vacation to rekindle it. And it's really this brick wall of things said and not heard between each other, to a point where we look at each other and go, you're a stranger. I don't know you anymore. I don't care for you anymore. Maybe we should split the relationship. Right? And that is just a daily stepping over of, you don't hear me, and now I'm going to stop trying.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
A lot of things were said to me, and, I avoided and didn't take care of, what should have been taken care of.
Yeah.
And therefore it dissolved, and, that brick wall was up, and
Yeah. So one of the things that I encourage couples to do, all of the ones that I interact with, and it's a practice my husband and I do as well, is every week. So on Sunday, we sit down, and it's like I'm talking to my friend. So not my husband, and he's not talking to his wife. It's like we're friends. Like, we generally enjoy each other's company, right? And so I get to share, here are the things that happened this week that hurt my feelings, or I feel like I wasn't heard, or I liked the way that went, and I like the way that you responded to that, and that showed up so differently when you did that, and I just really was so grateful, right? And so you really get a chance to almost write in your diary for the week with your significant other, so that way both of us are on the same page, and we go, okay, so this is how we did this week. It's kind of like our report card on the relationship, and we go, don't do that anymore. I didn't like that, or do more of that. That was awesome.
Sure.
So that way we begin the new week on the same page, without anything stepped over. And it really does take work. It's like a discipline, no different than going to the gym of, hey, may not want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and put your gym shoes on, but you really like the benefits. So you may not like sitting down and hearing from your husband that you were a jerk when you ignored him in the morning, but you're going to like the results after really listening to it on a weekly basis. So that's something I encourage my clients to do.
That's interesting. But I'm a little bit curious about, I'm sure there's couple like they set up a time and sit down and talk to each other, but there will be still like a moment they will feel like, okay, I expressed this, but you keep doing it. Here we go again. What should we do? And now I really don't want to keep repeating this conversation.
I don't blame you. You're like, I've said this already. Do you not hear me? Right?
Yeah, like you did this week, and you have been doing this for a month. Come on.
That's so great. Well, if you guys are familiar with the Hogan Assessment. So I'm certified to deliver the Hogan Assessment. It's actually 3 assessments. So the first one is the HPI. So it's your personality on a day-to-day basis. It's really the complementary between, like, what exactly attracted you to each other in the first place, right? It's all the synergy, it's all the power, it's all the good stuff. And you're like, no wonder we click so well, right? So it's the positive side. Then there's the HDS, which is the dark side. It's when you're under stress, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you don't have your best behavior on, which is usually at home with your partner, right? It's kind of you let your hair down. And it then, whereas that complementary turns into conflict. And you don't even realize the way that you're reacting because you're under stress and that just appears normal to you, right? And then the third assessment is the MVPI, which is your values. And so it's your natural drivers. It's the thing that you don't need to be motivated for. You're going to create your world with that in place. And so what I've done with couples, I've knocked your mic. So what I've done with couples is you sit down and you see how the dark side and how it plays out. And so my husband and I did this, for example. So one of the HDS shows risk. Now his level of risk is like on a scale of 1 through 100, it's like through the roof. Like the man's like, let's jump on that right now. Like he's very much, let's do that. Let's take care of that. Let's do 12 things at the same time. Right. And my risk level is significantly lower. It's almost like in the 20s or 30s. So when he brings that up where we fought in the past, I would go, that's irresponsible. We need to take time to flesh that out. I don't think this makes any sense. I think you're being irrational, like all of these things. And of course, on his side, he's like, you're not any fun. You don't let me explore. I feel constrained. Freedom is important to me. I don't feel free with you. How do I build with you? And so when we sat down and did our HDS and then looked at it together, it made perfect sense. I'm like, no wonder I react that way when you bring up all of these things, because that's how I'm hardwired, right? And no wonder you react to me that way, because that's how you're hardwired. And so now we've got like little code words where he comes home and he's like, I want to do this and I'm thinking about that and let's build another business. And I just take a breath and go, okay, I see that you're really excited about that. Can you give me time to think about it and we can talk about it tomorrow? So it's not a no, but it gives me room of my cautiousness to kind of let it sink in. And he goes, yes, he feels heard. And then the next day he may completely forget about it. He may not even want to do it any longer, but he wants to. That's your right. Shh, hope he's not listening, honey. But if it is, then now I've had room to process. It's given me the space because I have such a lower risk to be able to then talk about it for him to be heard. And so the profile is absolutely spectacular. It absolutely puts your personality out here when you're under stress, because when it really doesn't even have to do with your partner at all. Like your reaction in terms of to stress or what they say or don't say or how they're acting or not acting doesn't have anything to do with them whatsoever. It's completely what you brought to the table already, and you're just not aware of it. So the Hogan Assessment will answer the question of like, how come I keep on having to tell you? And then you'll look on there and you'll go, oh, your cautious score is really, really high. It makes sense. Has nothing to do with me.
That is so great.
Yeah.
Tim, you have anything to add on top of that? I mean, I know Tim for a few years, right? So we actually did a seminar, a program together. So I witnessed him to go through the whole marriage. And when I first met him, he was really like, he would just shut people out, literally, right? So I really witnessed him transform to be who he is today. And literally, from my observation, this was the shift that what you just shared, that he start conscious about, like, oh my God, this is what happened right here. Like, I made him cry, just so you guys know. I didn't make him cry. I asked one question and he started crying. I'm like, whoa.
What was the question?
I asked him, like, what if, like, it was switch the position? What if, like, you were trying to communicate with your spouse and then she just shut you out and not respond to you? And then he reacted the way he reacted, and it's kind of like, you talk about, like, she's really conscious about that part. It's important for her. And he actually is conscious about other things, which have nothing to do with her. Then he handled the way he handled it, and she handled the way she handled it. And that become like, it's not even a conflict, it's just how it show up. And become like you say, it could be a gap or it could be a wall, whatever it is. Yeah.
And really what I've discovered is, we just kind of do what we do.
Yeah.
And, it's just like our normal to just be certain ways in life. And, for, Rebecca to be the way that she was,
Rebecca is his wife.
Just,
so everybody knows.
She would just be, the way she was, and I would be the way I was. And, a lot of it, can happen from our families, our past, relationships, the marriages. My parents are divorced when I was 16. Rebecca's parents have stayed together. They're real fiery and together, and they talk about everything, even if there's a big battle. And, my family doesn't talk about anything. So, we had a lot of differences in the way that we were brought up and the way that we interact with one another. So, a lot of those things really, are kind of like part of the barrier, part of the past that was just kind of drug into our relationship that, that doesn't really work.
Yeah, that makes a really great point, right? So when you think about it, before any major purchase, before stepping into a new career, before doing any of those things, there's a lot of research, isn't it? It's
Absolutely,
like, this is what fits for me. The location doesn't work. It's too expensive. Or I like that job position, but I don't necessarily like that boss. Like, you really pay attention to all the details. And yet the relationship that's going to be the foundation, that could be the foundation of everything else in life, we don't do the same due diligence with that other person.
Well, and there's not really a place to go and discover that or
Correct.
be taught that. So
you would have to call me, Tim.
Well, I know. And at this age, you would be the one.
Yeah, totally.
It seems to me that it would be even better,
yeah,
if we were teaching this kind of stuff in schools.
Oh, absolutely.
So at the grade school level, middle school level, really having, expansion for our kids to be able to really understand relationships. I mean, we learned about finance, we learned about a lot of things, and the basic fundamental relationship strategies, and not dragging things that people said to you into the future, as being a really a deal that really could like open people's minds up.
Oh, I really love how you brought up the relationship education for kids, because it's so important. I was brought up the way that my parents never even share about their marriage or relationship, how they want their marriage and relationship. To us, to me and my brother, it's just like, wow, okay, go to school, study, get a good grade, get a good job, and don't date. Just don't date. That's distraction. Yeah. Just don't interact with guys. And, especially for girls, if you get pregnant, that's a problem. So, and then towards the college year, they will be all sudden saying things like, "Oh, are you dating someone?" Exactly. It's like, out of nowhere. Yeah, exactly, right? And then you're like, and maybe you just don't share about it because we never even have that conversation.
Right.
When I was growing up, all I was told is taboo. Like, don't do this. And then in college, it's like all of a sudden, like, okay, you got a job, like you need to do this and get married.
Yeah.
Out of college, get married. Like, okay, now I need to find someone, and I can not just get married, right? It's like kind of routine, like go to school, get a good job, find a man, get married, have kids, and whatever goes on, buy a house, buy a car. It's like, wow. But I never heard from anyone, like my parents or from my family, to tell me like how you should run your relationship. Right. And what I learned is from social media, like who knows what's out there, right? And then or from friends who's my age and trying to teach me how to date. I'm like, okay, cool. Oh, that's a good guy, that's a bad guy. Oh, he does this, he does that. Oh, that's good, that's not good. Like, oh, drop him, like cut him off, and things like that. So, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to manage my relationship? Really?
Yeah, you make a great point. Right? So as a woman, even like the whole idea of finding a man, like we're going to go to the grocery store and we're going to pick him up somewhere. We're going to find him, right?
Dating website.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Find him, right? And you're right that when you take a look at the models of our relationships are like Disney. Right. So the woman is in distress and the man comes, finds you, right? Or comes, saves you, or comes something because you're waiting because you weren't supposed to date. So he has to come find you. Right.
Or
waiting for something to happen.
Like
waiting
you said.
for something to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody's going to come along and everything's going to be great. Somebody's going to drop me $1 million.
Happily ever after.
I'm going to be great.
Yeah, we're never going to fight. Yeah. I'm never going to get mad at him because he didn't, put the top on the toothpaste. We're never going to be mad at any of that because that's not talked about.
Yeah, and the other thing Tim point out is, but we pick up from our parents, like how they want their relationship and their marriage. Mm-hmm. Even we want it or we don't want it, we just pick up that behavior. And even like the parents, they intend to educate us or not, but we just pick those up and we start running our relationship repeatedly what they do, or we keep trying to avoid what we don't like about what they do. Yeah. That is not necessarily good or bad. It's just how they want their relationship.
Well, and we end up, looking at that relationship like it's the truth. This is the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah.
My parents' relationship is the way it's supposed to be. And it's not the truth. The truth is not that. The truth is whatever we call the truth is what the truth is. But that's not my relationship and what I want to stand for. And discovering like who you are and what you want. That's all a part of life that isn't really like taught. Discovering like who you want to be, what are the possibilities that you could create for your life. You don't see anybody talking about that.
No.
In the schools.
Yeah, no.
And that's the, I was bullied when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So, I made that mean, that I was unworthy. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't man enough, those sorts of things. I have a 15-year-old son that was bullied, and I wonder what he makes that mean for himself. And I don't want him to drag that into his future, into meaning that is, he's not good enough, or all those things that he could make that mean, and I don't really want to put that on him. And I want to be a stand for people learning these things as they're brought up.
Yeah. Well, and you see that now, right? When you think of the average age that somebody gets married, mm-hmm. You look at that now, and it's certainly not like in my parents' generation or even when I was just first getting out of high school. Typically, people were getting married in their early 20s, like between 22 and 25. And I don't remember the study that I read it from, but it's literally people are waiting over a decade to get married because they're looking at their parents' relationship and said, not for me. Like, that's not for me, whatever that was, mm-hmm. right? Truth of being in a marriage or a relationship, and that's not for me. And so I'm going to wait and maybe not have a marriage at all. So you take a look at that, and that makes perfect sense where somebody would say, why would I do that? Mm-hmm. Right? I don't want that. That's not what I'm looking for. I want something else, but I don't know what that is because I didn't date.
Or I create all this standard, like you have to meet this. If not, like, sorry, you're not the one.
You're not the one. Next.
Yeah, next. What's my Mr. Right?
That's right. What is your Mr. Right? Well, and that's a really great point. So my husband and I lead workshops together through the foundation, and we led one recently in terms of how do you create, like you can absolutely create what your future relationship can be like, what your future partner to be like. Not being in a relationship. Like it's regardless if you have a relationship or not, you can absolutely, speaking to what you said, create it to have it exactly look like that you want it to look like, down from having somebody who is not a morning person, right? So, or sleep is important to you, that you want somebody who likes to sleep in on lazy Sunday mornings because that's something that is your experience of life. Sure. And so literally writing down on a piece of paper, like the top 15 things that you're like, this is what's important to me. This is what I value. This is what I'm looking for, so that you're very clear as you're going through life, going through your experience day to day, going, that's it. And it's going to ring really clear for you because you know exactly what you want. But you're right. You have to do that discovery yourself. Like, well, what the heck do I want? When I say I want a man that's strong, what does that look like? Mm-hmm. Is it the strong silent type like John Wayne? Right? Mm-hmm. Right? Or is it somebody who I consider strong, that they're willing to share their emotions, mm-hmm. Regardless of what they are? So what does strength mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be negative or positive.
Right.
You have to share the good with the bad, the
absolutely.
bad with the good.
Totally.
And really that is what creates the clearing for, to like be who you want to be.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and the person to show up, right? So I was really clear. I had done the work for myself. I had been single for 15 years. Was really clear that relationships weren't for me. I wasn't interested in it.
Mhm.
And were really just too much work. I had enough going, right? Like I have great friends. I had a great career. I made great money. Why would I add a man to that, right? Like, why would I do that? So I said, no marriage for me, like no relationship for me. And then I really started to do the work in terms of, well, is it that I don't want a relationship, or is it I just don't want the ones I've seen and been in? Right? Like, that's a different question, right? And really looking at what was really important to me, like who I was, like being honest with myself, looking in the mirror and say, well, really, who am I? Right? Like, what are my good traits, not so good traits, and kind of getting really clear on that. And once I did that, my husband showed up. And so we had been a part of leadership programs for a long time, a similar program together. And so we were always in each other's background, but never dated, never had any kind of romantic conversations whatsoever. But we started leading a leadership program together. And within 3 months, we were really clear. There was no hand holding. There was none of that romance whatsoever. It was literally the checklist of what we valued. Like, do you value that? Yeah, me too. Let's talk about that. Okay, check. That by the time we were done, we looked at each other and said, you're it. And we were married within 2 weeks. And so, so certainly not perfect ever after, but such a foundation of, I know what you value. We talked about that. You know what I value. You knew all the dark side stuff in terms of what I was going to do and not do, because I was honest with you, that, and vice versa. So now we're both get to work through that together, because it was like full disclosure. Right. And so we just don't have the same type of conflicts that other relationships have, but we did the work.
I love what you point out. From what I hear is, when you make the list, right, you can start saying like, is that really important for me? Maybe it's not. When you turn out, it's actually a different question, right? It's something else you value. And the other part is what you can accept that person. How much you can accept that person is, instead of I'm looking for the perfect one. But like really focus on, I want to accept this person the way he is and still love him or love her. And willing to make adjustment and work through things together, instead of trying to change someone or meet someone, match everything you weigh down, because it's not you, it's me.
That's right. That's exactly right. I was the one who said yes. That was me.
Right? Because when you really look around, like, oh, why we do this, why we do that, it's really your personal choice. It's not someone else create for you. Like your career is not someone else create for you. And your life is not someone else create for you, but we keep just going out and look at like, wow, like I hate my job, I hate my relationship, I hate this, I hate that. Like, no, you chose it. You can totally say no. It's not like, someone take away your power, or you're really being forceful to do what you don't want to do, because no one can force another human being to do what they don't want to do.
Right. No, that doesn't work very long. I mean, short term, when they're like under 5, maybe. And then after that,
not even under 5.
So maybe not.
Yeah, like 2 years old, they will start like, no, I don't want this. Yeah, and they will be telling you what I want. I'm going to cry until you buy me that toy.
Well, ultimately, responsibility is ours to choose.
Yes.
So we get to choose whatever it is that we want in life.
Right.
That's just the way it is. And so, no matter what is happening around us, we can choose it. And once you choose it, then you have the ability to transform it and choose something else. So it's important to see what it is that's happening and realize that you actually do have power over it, even though it might be negative. I mean, if somebody is punching me, in order for me to, like I would choose that person throwing a fist at me, because if I don't choose it, I can't do anything about it. But once I choose it and I realize, oh, they're actually doing this, I can do something different to avoid that, but not really avoid it. Like I'm not going to avoid it, like not choose that it's happening. It's still happening. But once I see that, I can actually transform it somehow.
Yeah. So I love what you're pointing to. So certainly being
Yeah.
responsible, but I think there's I kind of add another piece
Sure.
to that, and that is also being like really intentional, right? So you think about when I was getting ready for the show today, I was really clear on I'm going to wear that blouse. And I like that necklace with it. And I'm going to wear my hair curly. Like there was intention there in terms
Sure.
of what I was going to wear, right? And applying that same intention then if I'm sitting down talking with my husband or talking about something really important with my significant other, like having that same level of intention on what do I really want to accomplish? What's really important to me? What's the impression I really want to make? Like having that level of intention and foresight before you open your mouth, right? And we don't typically do that.
Sure. Yep.
Right. And so that goes back to being responsible.
Absolutely.
You're like, oh, you didn't think that through really well.
Yeah. And a lot of times we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's rewind.
Yep.
Let's do it again.
Or if you don't have the intention cut, you just start creating something else that you don't even notice.
Yes.
That's the worst.
Yeah. Not so great. You're like, I didn't mean to create that.
Yeah, I don't mean to invite that kind of behavior around me, but I'm just being casual, but it really show up.
Yeah.
But it's so great. All right. What is the next phase?
What's the next? Oh, right. Because we need to
go
we need to go on. Like, what happens now, right? We're in the gloom and doom of it, right? So we talked about not being heard, right? We talked about then the next piece is really being resigned. And then what shows up at that point, if it's not stopped at the resigned piece, is no longer interested. Like, I'm no longer interested in this relationship. I'm no longer interested in this project. I'm no longer interested in this marriage. I can only imagine, Winnie, how much you've seen that for yourself. We're like, forget it. I'm not going to buy the dress. The wedding's called off. It's not going to happen.
I think that's literally my relationship right now. I'm forget it. Forget it. My life is good. No, maybe I want it. No.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm just going to focus on myself.
Absolutely. And that makes perfect sense when somebody who's resigned, right, really feeling like I'm not going to be heard. I'm now angry that I'm not being heard. So never mind, I never wanted it anyway.
Sure.
Right. And so, of course, you're not going to want to get married, want to start that project, want to start that new business, want to go on vacation. It's just going to show up as a no thank you. And maybe not the thank you. Right. So what do you do to be able to hold that? So when you first start even hearing yourself say, you just don't get it, or you're not listening, right? I think I love what you pointed to in terms of being responsible for and go, okay, so let me be responsible for that, right? How am I saying it? How am I delivering that?
Sure.
Right. And so maybe if I'm yelling at the top of my lungs at my husband what I want, that's probably not the best way for me to be responsible for being heard. Right.
Sure.
Or silent treatment. Right. And so he should be able to figure that out. Right. If he loved me, he would know what I really wanted. I shouldn't have to tell him. That's a common one that shows up right, for females in terms of standard of communication. And so the first step is really, again, I go back to sitting down on a weekly basis. And it's not a chance to let me give you my laundry list of how you upset me, but really being responsible inside of the relationship and seeing it almost as a separate entity. Like there's you, there's me, and then there's an us. And so if I keep my interest on the us being healthy, then I'm going to look at it really differently than what I need and what I want. It's like, what does the us really want?
Sure.
Right. And sit down and really talk through that. So on a weekly basis is super important. That would be the first thing. The second thing is really being intentional. Right. And so sitting down in that conversation, like Stephen and I had ours last night. And what was my intention? Like, what did I really want to accomplish? What did I really want to get heard in that conversation to let my husband know this is how it felt to be his wife this week? Right. And what did I really want him left with? Right. And so I wanted to acknowledge him for all of the things that he did this past week, to really be aware of what it like, to make sure that I felt loved and cherished. That was his commitment when we got married. Those were his wedding vows, right? That he said, this is what husband meant. Right. So I wanted to let him know that he had fulfilled on that. And there were some things inside of our communication that perhaps just didn't deliver on that. Right. So not let me tell you, you jerk, but like, I love you. I saw the effort, and here are some things that I can be responsible for, but this is how I was felt. So, so sitting down once a week, having intention, like, what do I really want to say? What do I really want to mean? And sometimes, so one of the times Stephen and I, we were getting ready for a workshop that we were leading together, and I was so mad at him. I had taken off my wedding rings and put it on the bathroom sink to hurt his feelings, because I knew that would be hurtful, right? Like, I knew that would be hurtful, and he didn't even see them. So I had to tell him, I'm like, honey, I'm so mad at you. I took my rings off, and they're on the bathroom sink to hurt your feelings, and you didn't even see them. Go check that out. Right? To be able to announce, like,
this is just like announcing in the beginning.
I
Stop
really
doing
did.
all those work.
What I was really clear about was, I want to hurt your feelings because I'm hurt. Right. And so, not making it right, not making it wrong. We certainly have done things in our relationships. You're like, wow, I don't want to say that out loud. But that's what it really is to be in a relationship. Right. And for anybody to go, I did that on purpose just to be a jerk because my feelings are so hurt. So giving my husband a chance to go, well, why are you feeling so hurt that you would do that? And I'm like, I'm feeling this, and I'm overwhelmed about that. And I feel like you're not hearing me. I was really nervous. We were leading to a big workshop, and I was really concerned. Like, am I going to match up? Am I going to be good enough? Am I going to let you down? And it all showed up with me taking my rings off, right? But him asking, like, what had you want to be that mad and that hurtful with me, gave me room then to be honest, right? So sitting down once a week, being intentional, and being really clear inside of your communication of what do you really want to communicate. Those three things would certainly help many couples from having that brick wall become too high, so that you don't have to, where it then becomes I can't get through any longer.
Well, and you both have to use your words. You both have to use your words and really understand, what your words mean to you and what they mean to the other person.
Absolutely.
And you both have to also be on board with using your words and understanding what they mean. And, being like, responsible, for what you're saying, and also, for the other person and what they're dealing with too. And one of the things that has helped me a lot in that is, listening, like really starting to open my ears and listen and really feel what other people are going through, so that I can really understand more. And a lot, when I was younger, like a couple of years ago, I didn't really have that tool of listening. And it's been
2
so
years
important.
younger.
When I was younger.
Yeah, when I was
yesterday.
45. Yeah.
This morning.
And sometimes this morning. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Right. But and really the going back to, I love what you had said about creating. And so really creating your life together, like no different than, I keep on going back to businesses because I work primarily with entrepreneurs. But most people that have their own business, even if you don't own your own business, but you're a leader of an organization, you have quarterly goals. Like, you're really clear on what you're going to accomplish in the next 3 months. You're going to know it day to day. You're going to know what are the measure, what are your KPIs, your key, right? Your key indicators in terms of whether or not you're hitting that and you're on track, and having that same level of diligence with your partner. And what do we want to accomplish in these next 3 months? What will it look like when we get there? Who will I be for you? Who would you be for me? And what would be the indicator out in the world of that? So really creating your own indicators of that. And then you've got something to live into versus, the day-to-day grind of wake up, make the coffee, go to work, go through traffic, come back home, feed the kids, right? So the grind of life, there's actually something that you've created for yourself. My husband and I do it every 6 months to really take a look at, what does the next 6 months of life look for us in the we that we can live into. And it's much bigger than what my daily complaints would be, right? Or his daily complaints would be, because it's inside of something bigger. If you don't have something bigger inside of your relationship, then all of your attention is going to turn to fixing your partner.
Yeah, I agree completely. I always believe one thing is, family is important. Your relationship with the close one, with the people you love. When that works, your life naturally works. Because if you're upset at home, you're having a bad relationship, bad marriage, you would not have energy to wake up and go to work and trying to deliver whatever you want to deliver at work and complete what you need to be done. The other big part is, like you mentioned, right? When you go out to work with other people, no matter you are the boss or you're like the employee, it's a partnership right there. Because if you learn your partnership mainly from people who are close to you, you start learning to see it like understand the other person instead of focus on what I want, what I need, what I want to complain about it. But you're willing to step out and get to understand the other person, where they coming from. Because you learn it from your close relationship. You're not going to learn from your coworker, like, hey, where you coming from? You have a bad day, But like that's the behavior you develop while you are at home with someone who will love, like you love and they will love you. So that's just natural behavior you pick up, and then you go out to the world and you start introvert to the world the way you interact with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are almost complete, but I want to hear the last one.
Oh, the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. So, well, those are the 3 stages, of course, in terms of like where should you begin to either do your own intervention or take a look at either hiring a relationship consultant or really beginning to get somebody else's listening into the space to be able to kind of mediate, if you will, in terms of what's happening in the relationship, right? And of course, Hogan Assessment with my couples have certainly made a dramatic difference. But if you don't have the ability to hire a relationship coach like myself or a consultant like myself, what else can you do, right? Is really begin to turn the attention off of yourself. So we mentioned, right? So being in the first place is certainly making sure that you're setting the weekly time aside. And if you're not able to speak with your partner about it, then finding somebody that's going to listen to you as your relationship and not give you support in fighting about your partner, right? Like, oh yeah, he is a jerk, you should be mad. Like, not that friend, right? Not
just
that
like
friend.
adding oil to fire.
Yeah, not that friend. So if you're not able to do the assessment, is to begin to have that conversation with somebody that you really trust, that's really interested in the relationship working, can make a difference for you as you begin to take a look at what do you really want in the relationship, in a relationship. Not from this person, because that takes it away from I've got to fix this person. And we know nobody likes to feel like they're being fixed or that there's something wrong with them. There's a natural resistance there. But if you can take it off of this is what I want you to be versus this is what I need in a relationship, really creating what I call your conditions of satisfaction. What are the conditions that are required for me to be satisfied in this relationship, in a relationship?
Sure.
Right? And being really clear about that. So creating the conditions of satisfaction. And if you're not in a relationship yet, good for you. Create that conditions of satisfaction before you get into the relationship.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh,
I mean, really, you're like, let me just walk through this list. And it's a little old fashioned, but I tell my clients that if you're not in a if you're not in the romantic relationship yet, do it even before you have sex. You get sex into the mix and it becomes an entanglement. Now I know, old fashioned, but it really does, like your brain is designed for there to be a chemical reaction where now there's a connection with this individual, which confuses you in terms of what you really want. So if at all possible to be able to kind of put that to the side before you start saying, maybe this is the one. And the very last thing is, so my husband and I are doing April 12th, where it's on Eventbrite. It's called How to Create a Power Couple. And so we're doing that together. So, and it's free. So we're offering it just because we absolutely love to be able to support individuals in their relationships. And what does it look like in terms of intentionality and focus and communication to have a relationship work?
So where that will be at?
April 12th. That'll be at 850 South Wabash.
Okay. Great. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And, it's just really interesting to hear that you share about like, do the assessment before even you have a sexual relationship with someone. Because that's what happened in our generation, like this culture right now is lots of people, they think, it's just friends with benefit or whatever it is. Or we're just dating casually and all this. Is you slowly start mixing feelings.
Yeah.
And no matter you like it or you don't like it, it's just like, oh, okay, I think this might work, or I might want this right now, and I might want that right now, and then those emotions start mixing, it just get backlash.
Yeah, it really does confuse things, right? There's a difference between a relationship and an entanglement, right? And so you become entangled with the individual. It has a lot of drama to it when there's sex involved, regardless if it's just for sex, it's just for the biology of it. And it can get things quite complicated. It really can. Keeps you away from, am I really interested in a long-term relationship for myself? And if I am, then really honoring what are my conditions of satisfaction to be in one, because it is possible to have love and partnership and juicy sex all at once. You just have to be sure you've got it with the right person.
True.
Yeah, and the other part, last part, I think we didn't mention is being vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah, that is, I think that's the key thing about relationship, because we have so much emotion involved in a relationship with people. So like Elizabeth mentioned earlier, like, I'm really hurt. I put my ring right there. You don't see it. What's wrong with you, right? But like, it's not making the other person wrong when you say I'm hurt,
Right.
It literally like, I'm hurt.
Yes.
You just want to deliver like, because I love you, that's why I'm hurt. It's not like I love you and I want to play being hurt to punish you. Yeah, like that's a part, like, and for someone to express that they are really hurt, it takes courage. It does not just be like, oh, I'm just telling you, like, I'm hurt every single day, right? So I think, like, that's the other piece I want to add on to it.
That's great. Yeah, no, absolutely. Willing to say, I'm
That's
sad.
great. Well, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
being here.
Absolutely.
If anyone interested on getting to know more about Tim and Elizabeth, they are open for share their story with you. We'll put the information on our social media page, Facebook page, Rising Icon, Wini Woo with Friends, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Wini.
Yeah, that's
Bye-bye.
great.
Woo, we did it.